Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
And since we've just started the recording now, let's kind of rewind the time machine. Let's just say a little bit about the amazing projects that you're doing with Birdability and with the Spark Bird project, because for people who are just seeing this in a video form, they deserve to hear about that too.
Absolutely. Thank you for thinking of that. I really appreciate it. Birdability is a nonprofit working to create access to birding and the outdoors, specifically for folks with disabilities and other chronic health concerns. We do that in lots of different ways, including creating accessible events, working with public lands on physical kinds of accessibility, and building community, online community that is welcoming and inclusive for all. And that's part of what the Read, Write, Draw series has been for us. My name's Kat Frively. I'm the executive director here, and I'm really delighted to get to be in space with these two fantastic collaborators and comrades. And Jen, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, folks. I'm Jen Lodi Smith. I am the director of the Sparkbird Project. I'm a professor at Canisius University in Buffalo, New York, and a scholar in residence at the Roger Tory Peterson Institute. I started the Sparkbird Project a few years back to study and celebrate the stories of how we fall in love with birds. I am really fascinated by every single story that's out there. And I think there's something we can learn from every single story about how we individually come to appreciate these wonderful creatures around us, the broader natural world. And I think there's so much that we can learn, and that the Sparkbird Project can give back to our community partners to help grow and sustain our birding community, which is really so much of what is at the heart of this project. So the link to our website, the link to our Instagram are there. You can read stories in those spaces. You can share your story. No story is too small. They're all wonderful. We celebrate them all. You can also see preliminary findings that are coming out from the story so far, but really to make our findings the best, we need y'all to share your story. And we hope that this will help you do that.
Fantastic.
So thank you both. I really like the way that the ideas of birdability are interlocking with the things that you're doing with the Spark Bird Project. If we think of birding as something kind of for you know an elite crew of people who are chasing down rare migrants, um, that's not for most of us. But if we think of it as as a window into the natural world, and to pay attention to what was the moment that we fell in love with the natural world through birds. For many people, birds are the entry drug to a connection with nature. Um, and those that doesn't have to be a rare Kirtland's warbler showing up in Juneau. That it can be a just sort of a moment with a common bird that you connect with, and paying attention to how we make those connections, that helps us be able to make those connections also in other places. And we don't want to think of birds as, this as sort of the extreme rare things that you have to climb a mountain to see. The things that are right in your backyard are absolutely amazing. Right now, I'm looking out at the feeder. Oh, actually, a few seconds ago, it was filled with birds. Now something has happened. They've all flown off. Sorry, no birds at this moment. But those the common birds that are kind of coming through our lives all the time have secrets to tell us. If we learn how to pay attention, the world gets so much brighter and deeper. So what I want to do is to show you some tricks to be able to sketch and draw the birds that you find as a way of connecting more deeply with them. I don't think of this so much as art as an attention skill. And a sidecar of it is that if you draw lots of birds, you get better and better and better at drawing birds. Whatever we do, we get better at. That's what Amy Tan discovered when she started drawing the backyard birds that were coming into her world. And what do you know? It's through repetition that we can develop all sorts of skills. So if you're saying to yourself, well, that's great if you're born an artist, but this has nothing to do um, with some innate talent. It's through work and practice on things that we can develop all sorts of skills. We want to think of our brains as plastic and flexible and able to grow. So I'm going to show you my favorite tricks to draw my garden birds, or perhaps your garden birds, because I picked a few little birds as examples that I don't have over here in California. Some of them I do, but a bunch of these are ones that where I just have East Coast bird envy, and but so you might recognize some of your locals, but I thought it would be fun for me just to draw some of your birds, um, and but in so doing. Um, I'm going to be trying to unpack when I'm looking at a bird and I want to transfer it from there to there on the paper. What am I noticing? How do I start? How can I do this? Kind of, is there a framework that makes it easier for me to get the image down on the bird? And my friends, yes, there is. So let's go there now. So I'm going to go over to kaboom. Ba-bum, ba-bum. Let's see if we can get me added into this picture. All right. So here we go. I am going to spotlight this for everybody. And so what I want to do is I'm going to be, we're going to look at a bird. I'm going to point out as I'm looking at this bird, as an artist, what do I want to really notice in order to help me be able to get that down on my page. And then you'll be able to see me draw that. How do I do that? What lines do I start with? How do I build that up? And what I want to encourage you to do is to get a piece of paper and and a pencil if you are able to, and to follow along with this. And I think you're going to find that a bunch of these techniques and strategies are accessible for everybody. Again, I've had more practice doing this. So sometimes when you're looking at somebody draw and they have been drawing a lot, it kind of looks like this magic trick, right? And you go like, mine doesn't look like that. That's okay, right? It's a skill that you develop by doing it, and I just have been doing it a little bit longer. So that being said, uh, um, Freya, good job. You've got your sketchbook ready. I'm really happy to hear that. Let's go take a look at our first bird. And our first little buddy is, oh, see, I really do have East Coast bird envy. You guys get to use red paint all the time. You folks get to use red paint all the time. I am jealous of that. So look at this lovely thing. Okay, so the first thing that I do when I see a bird is I just let myself love it. Let your heart kind of go out. Celebrate, like, look how beautiful you are, right? Let yourself just be in awe of this wonderful thing. Doesn't matter if we get a picture of it. You have this moment to kind of make a connection with this thing of beauty, this wonder, this spiral of DNA that has been twisting through time for billions of years. Oh my goodness, look at you, look what you did. All right, so I find that if I'm looking at a bird and then I say to myself, now I'm going to draw it, and I look down at my piece of paper, my brain goes blank. And I like, um, uh, it's hard. I don't have a photographic memory. So let me teach you a really powerful trick. And this is also a great trick if you don't have a sketchbook with you and or are not don't want to be drawing or are not able to. This is a trick called the production effect, and it will drastically improve your memory of the details that you see. Here's how it works. What I do is I first look at the bird. I love on the bird. And then I start talking to the bird. Yes, I'm talking to the bird. I'm actually talking out loud to the birds. I'm going, look at you. And I'm describing it out loud to the bird. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, first of all, that's kind of weird, right? You have to get over that. It might be a little bit awkward, especially at first, because we're kind of taught like this code of silence, like I will be really quiet, otherwise we'll scare the bird away. Like if the bird's right next to you, yeah, I'm not talking. But basically the bird's over there on the branch, I start talking, the birds are going like, you are not acting like a predator. I'm not at all afraid of you. This is perfectly fine for me. So you're not going to scare the bird away. But it would sound something like this. Like you've got this really, really, really big, thick triangle bill, not an equilateral triangle. It's a little isosceles triangle that is a little bit longer than it is wide on the base. And there's not one crown, there's sort of a scruffy crown that kind of goes back, big, kind of jiggy jaggy, all right? Black goes over the bill to the eye, but not behind the eye, then down, blocking the bill from the throat, and then it goes down to the throat. See, what I'm doing is if basically it's like if you see something, say something. I am describing what I see out loud. In order for me to be able to do that, I have to notice a detail, let that rise to my conscious attention that this is something important to remember. And then um, then that moves my mouth and I say these things. I then reinforced hearing myself say it. Because I say these things, I now am going to remember that it's dark over the forehead and it goes to the eye, but not behind it, and then down, blocking off the bill and onto the base of the sort of the top of the breast there. Because I said it out loud. If you talk to a bird, you will remember the details that you see much, 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 much better. So now as I look down to sketch, my brain's got a lot more information in it, right? And so kind of grayish red on the back and dusky, darker reddish on the wings. The edge of the feathers themselves a little bit more darker, perhaps brownish. The center of the tail on the top is darker than those edges that I'm seeing, bright red under upper and undertail coverts. And aren't you lovely? So again, talk to the bird, talk to the bird. And then here's another thing that I do. Now this is, I'm going to have to kind of jump over to this cam. Whoop. This, bear with me here. Pet the bird. That's right. Pet the bird. What I do is I put my hand up like this and I imagine oh, kind of over your head, kind of coming down your back and then your tail. And I'm feeling the contour of that bird, physically feeling the bird. And this creates a kinesthetic connection between what I'm seeing and what my hand is doing. And then I'm going to translate that line, the pet the bird line, into the first line that I do. If I don't do this, I tend to kind of put my bird posture, the angle that the bird sits at, sort of a generic angle. And when and I'm not going to get something that's going to look as much like the bird, but I'm talking to the bird, I pet the bird, and this and this really makes a big difference for how I'll be able to sketch it. Let's take a look at our bird friend again. So everybody, pet the bird. Really try this right now. See, Jen is doing it. Everybody get your hand up there, lift your hand up and sort of press on the back of the head. There's a little bump, kind of come out of the back, that little booty comes down and then the tail comes down, right? You know, your camera's on. I could see that you didn't do it. Oh man, you're in
I'm
trouble.
having to laugh because as soon as I reach out to touch this cardinal, I'm having this immediate response as somebody who volunteers at bird banding stations that's going to reach around and grab me. So it's like instinctive, don't touch that bird.
Right. So, but what you're doing is you're kinesthetically making a connection with this, right? Now, when I go to make marks on paper, gosh, could we see some paper? Yes. Here we go. So this, yep. All right, let's get some paper on the scene here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a colored pencil that's sort of a light color. I like to block in the bird really, really lightly at the start. and then go over that with darker. So let me just draw a little circle to do that. Like I can't draw a perfect circle. I can draw a little circle. No, that's not a good circle. See, now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over that a few times and then kind of round it up and make it more. There we go. That's a better circle. And once I've kind of got a better circle that way, I can then come over that with another thing and go like, look, there's my circle. All right, that's a better circle than I started with. Oh, mine still has a little bit of a hat there. All right, so that I kind of got a better circle by first just sort of putting some light lines down there. So I gave myself a little bit of scaffolding. And I'm going to do the same with that bird. So I'm going to pet the bird, and then I'm going to say, like, look at you, look what you've got. You little, my little bird friend, you've got this sort of, the back of your neck is kind of like this, and then you've got this other little back here, and then it's kind of coming down like, oh, maybe more like that. Yeah. All right, there's the sort of, so that little pet the bird line, I lightly, loosely draw that on my piece of paper. And for these initial sketches, if you have enough room on your paper, if it allows, make them a little bit bigger. When we kind of do it like really small, you can get away with doing that. And sometimes people will say like, well, they'll say like, if I'm just making small lines, I'll only make small mistakes. But it's hard for our fine motor stuff to kind of fuss around and noodle around in these little areas. If I give myself a little bit more room to play, that's okay. And if you're thinking to yourself, but I don't want to waste paper, recycle. Or get some of those magazines that come in every day and just call the number on the back of them and say, please take me off this list. There's a little number on the back. You call that, you give them the catalog number, it stops coming to your house. You will save so much more paper this way than you ever would if you were just by drawing little tiny birds. So don't worry about paper conservation here. There's a different place for that. It is important, right? We don't want to waste a tree. But this is not a waste of a tree. This is going to help you observe. And boop. All right, so I start that way. So that's my first line. It's that kind of pet the bird line. Doesn't have to be perfect, but it's going to kind of get the angle of this thing. And then I put a little head on my bird. So I draw a little light, loose circle up here. I'm intentionally, by the way, using this light aqua pencil because I want these initial lines to be really light. I then am going to go over it with darker. So I know that this is kind of hard to see, but that's the reason that I'm using this little pencil here is because it's a little bit harder to see. If you're drawing a small bird like a chickadee, it's going to have a really big head. If you're drawing a big chunko bird, like maybe a mourning dove, well, it's going to have a little head. So little birds have big heads. Birds have little heads. And so as you're putting in that head in, just sort of remember those sort of general proportion guidelines. I tend to make all my heads too big. So I often will double check, did I make my head too big? Yeah, actually I did here. It should be a little bit smaller. Okay. Now, I'm going to give it a beak. And for the beak and its eye, I just draw initially a little line right through there saying it is looking out in this direction. So here's my head, there's my beak. I'm not drawing that whole beak in. I'm just getting the direction that it's looking. Then I'm going to look at the shape of the air in front of its neck. Don't look at the red bird. Don't look at the red bird. Look at the shape of the green in front of the bird. You see that shape of the green? You notice when you look at the shape of the green in front of the bird, it is easier to see the angles on the tummy of that bird. That's called looking at negative space. If I look at the shape of the air in front, I'm not distracted by all the detail of the bird. And it's easier for me to go, let's just kind of get in that shape. What does it do? It kind of comes down and then it kind of comes out a little bit and then it comes back a little bit. And then there's some wing that is kind of bopping down. So I get that little angle in front there. That gives me the kind of my block of my bird. Now, I look at where does the leg come in. So the leg is coming in somewhere in here. Just putting a little tick mark for where that is. It's on a log that is somewhere in here. What about its wing? I put a little dot where its shoulder is starting, so that's in a little bit from here. Right, so in roughly about here. So it's going to start somewhere in there, and it's going to end somewhere down here below the tail. Sometimes it's above the tail. And I put just a little light line saying, I'm going to have some sort of a wing business coming down this way. And my kind of quick and dirty wing, so when I'm drawing a wing, I usually start with that line that's the front edge of the wing. And then let me see if take a look at, so if this is my wing, Jen, are you seeing a blue line on your screen?
No,
No.
try again.
All right. What about now?
Nope. It
No.
got wavy for a minute, but
Try one more. Nope. It's not wanting to do that. Hold on. I'm gonna
It worked the other day in the other workshop.
It worked the other day in the other workshop. Sometimes when you are, what I'll do is give me 20 seconds and I'll have it fixed. In the meantime, do you know a bird joke? Oh, somebody in the chat, help us out. We need a bird joke.
Yeah,
We
no,
guess
I'm bad at jokes. I need my kids.
come
They're off
on,
learning about snow
participants.
owls.
Who can give us a bird joke in the chat? Anyone?
We're all frozen. We're like,
I know.
Oh dear. You're in headlights. All right. Now I think I should have this.
A classic dad joke coming if you need it. But
Oh, please do. Oh, please do.
all right, Michelle, knock it to us. Why can't you trust atoms?
Um,
oh, we have a crow on and bees.
I'm not positive.
I want to know all these jokes now.
Michelle, you're gonna have to
Oh, I think we have blue. They make everything up.
They make everything up. Right. Do you see a blue line now?
Yay, there goes. There goes.
All right.
And I want the answers to these jokes in the chat.
Same.
All right. So here we go. What I'll do for the wing is that when I'm initially sketching it, I think of this line right here along the front of the wing. And then I'll just put in a big oval for all of the rest of the mass of this. So essentially my quick and dirty wing is, here's the front of my wing. Here is the coverts and the secondaries. And as I'm blocking these things in, that whoop, whoop, is a great kind of quick stand-in for a bunch of detail. We'll be filling more detail in this later, but there we go. All right. So jumping back to my little bird friend here. They make everything up. So these two atoms are hanging out, and one of them looks down and he goes like, oh man, dude, I think I just lost an electron. The other one says, are you sure? First one says, yeah, I'm positive. Sorry. Nerd dad joke.
Keep the dad jokes coming.
I think we need an April Fool's Day event that is just bird and nature jokes.
All right. So you see how I've initially blocked all these things in. There's not a lot of detail here, but it's easy for me to change this thing around. And because I've really not committed to very much here. And so I now can just take this and draw over it. So because I have this essentially this scaffolding that's really light, I can now come in here and start to build up the rest of this drawing. Right, and in this bird, there seems to be kind of like a big slope over the front of the head. Kind of cresty out here. And Then we're going to kind of come over the back of its neck. I'm going to put a few little flicks in like that. It makes it just look a little bit fluffier. Now the eye sits right, that little line that we drew in for the beak, the eye sits on top of that line. So take a look, if here's the base of the beak, I want to be back on that line, sitting on top of it, not too close to the front, but to be closer to the front often than my brain will think it should be. And so I'm thinking maybe somewhere right in there. But having that little line, you place the eye on top, that really helps me be able to place my eyes. Right, this bird has a little bit of a auricular patch coming down here. Now I'm going to go over the back of that bird, and it's kind of a heavier line here, and it's going to get a little bit fluffy down here. Suggest a little bit of fluff on those upper tail coverts. And then coming down that tail. So I'm looking at, is it long tail, short tail? Tail comes up in here, and then we're going to fluff these little feathers in there. The undertail coverts sneaking right in there. I'm going to put in a hint of some other feathers here in this tail, but you're not, but I used to do this. I used to like draw, and I knew that this was like this big stack of tail feathers, and I'd draw them all in, and it looked like some sort of a machine kind of getting stuck to the side of the bird. A little bit of bird tummy. Now, bird feet scare everybody, right? There's all these little kind of knobs and bumps and twists. Generally, there's one toe in the back. It's got a little claw on it. And there's a sort of a swelling right before you get to that. The rest of the toes here we're not seeing because they're kind of coming forward over the top of the branch. The more you draw bird toes, the less scary they become. Gonna get a little bit of fluff coming over here over the front of my little cardinal friend. Leading edge coming down here. I've got covert feathers swinging across here. And I used to draw in, all the edges of all the feathers. But if you look at this, you see some of the feathers, like these first three. There's three kind of big feathers here on the wing. These are the start of the secondary feathers. 1, 2, 3, and they sort of overlap. So you can think of 1, 2, 3, and then there's going to be a whole pile the same length that all kind of tuck in underneath that. The tip of my primary feathers stick out here, so that's what we're seeing is actually these are secondary feathers. These are primary feathers. And then these guys, these are covert feathers up in here. And you notice that I used to draw, again, I used to draw on all the edges of all these feathers. But then I realized that they actually just sort of, they just kind of look like a mass of feathers. The scapular feathers on the back overlap the top here. And that gives me sort of a basic bird shape. Oh, look, remember I said I often make my bird heads too big? This bird has a head that's too big, even though I was looking out for that. It happens. It's okay. So whenever I do that, like I make a head too big, I go like, oops. Head a little smaller. And so if you start adding written notes in with your bird drawings, then your drawing doesn't have to do all the heavy work. I made that eye too big too. Turning this into sort of like an anime character. I don't know. But if there's something that is off with your drawing, that's okay. Just make a little note of it. And next time you'll be more likely to catch that. We'll see if on my next drawing I can make my head a little bit smaller. And then on its back here, this bird is sort of a little bit more grayish in here. So I'm gonna just add a few little kind of hatched lines in here over the wing. Dollar red. Right. If you start adding written notes into your drawings, they feel a lot less intimidating. They feel like you don't have to have this thing be perfect. You can add a written note in, adding some more detail. Darker on top. So there is bird one. And if I wanted to, just because color is fun, you could come in here and I'm just going to drop some color onto it. This red's fun to use. And I just have massive envy of East Coast birders. The purpose of all these things, I don't think of as my goal is not to make a masterpiece. My goal is, can I get myself to notice something a little bit, a detail that I otherwise might not have seen. So dollar red on back. And so I'm gonna, for me, that's my big take home here, right there. That's what I want to remember, because that's something that I've just learned about cardinals by looking at this bird. So if I'm going to draw a little circle around that, I'm just reminding myself like, hey, you've just learned something new about cardinals. There's a bit of cardinalness that you didn't know before that you now have a deeper appreciation of. Let's try a different bird. Let's try. Second. Let's try this bird. Yeah, that's a nice bird. Look at that. Okay, pet the bird. Notice how the back of the head, right, and that back, totally different angle, right? Totally different angle. And I'm going to build the whole drawing around this different angle, and that's going to make this bird look really different. By the way, I want to send a shout out to Vivek Kanzode, who's the photographer behind birdpixel.com. It's a source that I go for lots of photographs of birds, and he encourages us birders to go there regularly and can use those drawings without violating copyright, because he's encouraging us to go play there. Birdpixel.com. I love this site. So now I'm going to talk to the bird. I'm going to say, look at you. You got a really dark head and it goes all the way onto your back. I've got a lot of white stripes in the wings, the greater coverts, the edges of the primary feathers. There's sort of a strange white patch in the middle of your secondaries. And orange on the edge of your tail, black on the top, orange upper and lower tail coverts. Less maybe is that a little bit of breast feathers cascading over the top of your wing, or are those a little row of lesser coverts that are orange? Rump is orange going all the way up to about the same point that the secondaries come in. Very, very long beak, kind of bluish sheen to it, a little bit less long as the head, sharp pointed, and the black on the underside of the throat cooks up really far under it, gray legs, and the on the I can see a little bit of its the tip of its thigh sticking out there, and that's also orange. So what I've been doing again is talking to the bird. So I try to say these things out loud. If I say them out loud, my brain will hook onto them and register it more. Now, as I go to draw the bird, I'm much, much more likely to be able to remember to get those details into my drawing because I said them out loud. It's a very, very powerful drawing trick. So, for instance, if you have a hard time remembering people's names, somebody introduces themselves and says, "Hi, I'm Sally." If you go, "It's very nice to meet you. I'm Jack," you'll forget Sally's name. But if you say to yourself, "Oh, Sally, it's really nice to meet you," you just said their name. You had to, in order to say that, you needed to listen carefully enough that you actually heard them say Sally. And then you say Sally, and you saying Sally helps you remember the Sally. Even when you sally forth, you will be able to kind of still have that Sally. You're 40% more likely to remember Sally's name just by saying that. The same goes for saying out loud these details of the birds. At first, it feels really weird, but this is a crazy memory hack. So if you're somebody like me who's constantly losing your keys, if you're putting your keys, well, first just put them in that basket by the door. But if you put them in a non-standard place, say, "I'm putting my keys on the dresser," as you're putting your keys on the dresser, it has to be out loud. Turns out the production effect doesn't work if you think it in your head. Right? Works also for these birds. So let's take a look at the, okay, so pet the bird, pet the bird, pet the bird. That's the angle. That's the angle I'm going to start with. I'm going to get that line off the top of the back of the head, down the back and onto the tail. And I'm going to just build the whole bird, hang the rest of the bird drawing off that line on the back of the bird. So let's see what that could look like now. All right, you birdie, 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 birdie. Will I draw your head too big this time? I don't know. We're gonna have to find out. All right, so you got a little sort of kind of an angle like that. Huh. All right. And do. Yeah, I kind of like that. All right. So I put in that angle of the back. And then I put a head, not a big head, because this is a pretty good sized bird. I'm not going to make my head too big. I'm not going to make my head too big. All right. And then we are looking out this way. And now I look at the shape of the air in front of the chest. It kind of comes down like this. And then down like that. And now I've got room. I can put a little ball in behind that. What is your wing doing? Your wing is starting somewhere in here, and it's ending somewhere over here. All right, so something like that. And all right, little oval on the top of that. You've got a leg that is coming down. How far? Where is it sticking out? It's coming from down a little bit here. You got a leg that's coming out here. Another leg that is coming out here. I'm looking at the space, how much space there is between those. That roughly works. And now I've got a light kind of ghosty preliminary sketch of that bird. So if you write your term paper and you don't have an outline first, you don't know where to go. It's the same with drawing a bird. If I start with just drawing its eye and working out from there, I'm not going to get that posture. I'm not going to get the proportions of the bird. But now I can look at this. I didn't make my head too big. It looks okay here. Body seems to, those seem to be good proportions. All right, I can work with this. So now I'm going to draw my little bird. And from here, you can really start any place you want, but I will often start over at the head of the bird. And this one has a long beak. Any part, by the way, that is really interesting, I should sort of make a special note of this. Any part that's really, really interesting on your bird, like let's say you're drawing a curlew and it's got this huge, huge curved bill. You're looking at a raptor and it's got this thing in front of it. whatever part of what you're drawing that really catches your attention, we as human beings, we have a tendency to draw that too big. This is why heads tend to get too big on human figures, eyes on the figure tend to be too big because we're really captivated by those eyes. So we're like look at you, eye, I'm gonna get that eye. So we draw that eye really, really big on the head. And like this part of the head is really boring. Look at all the fun stuff happening down here. And then this boring part here. So what we do when we're drawing, this whole boring part, we leave it out. So we put the eyes way too, like this is halfway down my head, these eyeballs. But this part is boring. So we will like shrink the boring part and like make the part that's interesting to us too big. So it just totally messes us up with our proportions. So if you kind of say to yourself, like, I really like that beak, that's a cool beak. Now you know that. You're less likely to kind of go crazy on drawing a big old toucan bill on your Oriole. We don't do that. Mm-mm. Or at least we try not to. Sometimes we draw a cardinal with a head that's too big. And you know what? It's going to be okay. All right, so here we are coming on in here. Look at the way that this beak attaches to the head. So up in here on the top part, there's this little, there's a little nostril that kind of comes in there. And then down on this bottom part, there's a poof of feathers that sticks out into that bottom part. It's on the edge of what's called its malar. And then the rest of the feathers tuck up underneath the bill. So you've got these two poofs of dark coming into it. And then we also have feathers coming up. People will draw the bird's heads like this. Here's my bird and here's my beak. Right? And it looks like you just put a carrot in a snowman. But if I really look at how those are attaching, it feels like I've really got a beak that is sticking in my bird. I like looking at the angle on the forehead as I come up here. It's going to come back here. And then there seems to be about in here, there's a big inflection point and it turns down. I will often initially make my birds really kind of angular and emphasize these corners. Otherwise, I tend to just over round everything and everything just looks like a big bubble bird. All right, let's place that eye. Here's my eye beak line. Eye's going to sit on top of that. How much space? I want about that much space. And then my eye. Don't make my eye too big like this guy. Oh no, I have a really big eye. All right, come on in here and we'll see what we can do. Put a few little feathers right around the edge of the eye. Kind of makes them, this gives them a little bit of a sleepy look, but that's cool. All right. Now we'll come down here, come out onto the chest, and curve that chest around. Now this little curve of the chest here can look not fluffy. So I'm going to put a few little fluffy tick marks into it. So here's how the way the fluffy tick mark works. I'm going to just put a few little, kind of press harder and I flick that up like that. So in this area here, right where we kind of come around that corner, just suggest that this has a little bit of fluff to it. Maybe you get a couple little fluffer marks in here. All right. Maybe a few little fluffers in here. Now we'll come back here on the back. Back comes down. Did I make my head too big again? We'll know soon. There is no masterpiece in doing this. Every drawing that you make is just practice for the next one. And it's okay. You just get yourself to make another one and another one and another one. I always try to think of my drawings as studies instead of a portrait. coming up here on the top of my wing. This is sort of one of these places where understanding some wing anatomy will really, really help you. And as I kind of go through this wing, I might as well kind of use this as here's a little kind of clinic in bird wings, because we'll see several different parts of these feathers here. I'll sort of show you how to draw them. Initially, I'm just sort of blocking in a bunch of these shapes. And actually, this little black sticks in. So yeah, let's take a look at this wing. So this little birdie's wing, there are several different parts to it. And one thing which will help you is to, if you study a little bit of bird wing anatomy, that will really help you be able to draw what you see. So check this out. This whole part up in here, this part of the wing, these are called the greater coverts. These feathers up in here are medium and lesser coverts. So this is
I
this
don't think
whole.
I see where you're pointing, Jack,
No.
for some
Oh dear,
reason.
did my purple line disappear again?
Your purple line disappeared again. I was like, wait a minute, I need this lesson. Help.
Oh, I wonder why. Sometimes our tech works for us and sometimes it doesn't. Let me just one more time. Let's see here. Now, I am. All right, I'll try one more time.
Thanks for
do you-
keeping on when the tech is not your friend. Oh, now we see it. Smiley face.
Okay. All right. First, we're going to do a covert operation. All right. This whole section of feathers here are the secondary coverts of the wing. This big row on the bottom are what are called the greater coverts. Then you've got the median and the lesser coverts up above. Down below those, you've got the major flight feathers of the wing. Over in here, this is what are called the secondary feathers. And they have a series of feathers at the top and then a bunch of little ones kind of tucking in. Those are on top of the primary feathers. And the primary feathers kind of overlap like this, all in a big pile. And at the very front here, these ones I was calling the covert feathers, actually those are the coverts of the secondary feathers. This little weird black thing sticking out here, that's the coverts of the primary feathers. So the purple and the green are both coverts. The green is secondary coverts. The purple is, the green is primary coverts. The purple is secondary coverts. The little brown spot on the back, or what it'll now kind of color in here, those are secondary feathers. And the blue down below them, those are the primary feathers. So we've got secondary coverts, primary coverts, we've got primaries and secondaries. So if you study these little parts of the wing, it will make your bird drawings much, much easier. But now as I go to draw my bird, if I've got those little zones in mind, those will be, you don't have to memorize these sort of in different ways for different birds, because you'll see very similar patterns across a bunch of different species. So I've got my covert feathers my secondary covert feathers in a big pile up in here, there is then a zone of kind of orange that sticks down. And the little black wedge on top, I think those are probably our lesser
Giving up.
coverts.
Give up.
Out here in the secondaries, I've got a pad of feathers that kind of sticks out, angles in, and kind of comes back like that. Those are my secondary feathers, and there's 3 big feathers in here, and then a whole bunch that have parallel edges in there. My primary coverts are kind of drooping down here. And my primary feathers are sticking out behind this whole process here. And they have leading edges that come all the way up in here. Now, let's put in our little tail. We're going to kind of come down here onto a tail, nice long tail on this bird. Those feathers are going to come back. I think I did I make the head too big? Let's see. A little bit too long. Should kind of end right in there. So I'll just make a letter. All right. And then we've got our little tummy, bird tummy coming down here. Let's get a leg. We've got that little ankle coming down. Bird has 1 toe sticking back that goes off the bottom of my page, so I don't have to draw that claw. And for the part that's going around on the other side, I don't have to draw that either. What about on this side? We're going to have a back claw that is sticking down here. And then the other part's going to disappear around the other side of the branch. I have another wingtip here. Oh, let's see. Oh, wait a minute. Look at this. Oh, this is fun. This is fun. So as you're drawing along, you kind of get to a part, if you're going to draw something in, what I'm always looking at is how does that relate to other pieces. So I'm going to try to draw this little, whoops. I'm going to try to draw the little wingtip that is sticking in, that I can see on the other side of those undertail coverts. But look at this. On my drawing here, these undertail coverts come into the base of the wings here, but really on the photograph, they're way out here. Whoa, so this is a sign right here that I have made a big, this part here doesn't match up with that. That is what there's a tendency for us to do is just ignore it, kind of draw that little wingtip in. Or you can say to yourself like, whoa, 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 hold on a minute. There's a goof in proportions here. And what do I need to do? What I need to do is to go take a look at the bird again. And when I find one of these, if I fix it now, that'll be better than kind of laying it. Because I could draw the little wingtip in here, but then what's wrong here? This bird has, it's losing some of its booty. Really, this bird's belly comes in here, is disappearing behind the wings here, is coming out here, not here. It's coming out all the way over there. All right. And then the tail wants to be down here. Yeah, that's what our bird wants to do. I'm just gonna I want an edge of my bird. It's more like this. Not that other line in there. So if I'm drawing some part of my bird and it doesn't match up, it's really easy just to ignore it and kind of go on. But when you do catch those things, you give yourself permission just to stop and kind of go like, oh, what do I need? Oh, that line there comes through out there, not out there. Then now I can get my little wingtip in. And we'll even put in the far side on this wing here. I have it kind of drooping down a little bit too low. Every time you make a mistake, it's actually a gift. It's a gift because when we're drawing, we're often sort of making marks that are, this is what I think is going on. I look at this and I try to transfer them to the paper. I look at this, I try to transfer it to the paper. And then I look down and kind of like, well, that's not working. What it means is something that I thought I saw is often different than what I'm actually seeing. And so when you get to those parts of a drawing that kind of go, uh-oh, right? Go like, oh, like this is an opportunity to learn something. So you go back to the Oriole and say, all right, little buddy, what's going on here? What's going on here? Like, oh, that's what you're doing. I thought it was this other thing. And then you're much less likely to make that same mistake again, except for me, if I'm making big heads. I keep doing that. I'm a big header. I make big heads. And the but you can if I'm not drawing, my brain isn't aware that part of the mental model that I'm putting together in my head is different than reality. The drawing is kind of a check on me, like, oh, I'm actually seeing a different thing. So when you get to those moments, it's not like, oh no, I messed up my drawing. It's, oh, good. This drawing actually helped me notice something that I otherwise wouldn't have seen.
Well,
And it's an opportunity to look again. So those are some strategies that I use to see a bird and to get it down on paper. The more I practice it, the better it gets. It is not, don't think of this as again as bird portraiture. When we're hanging out with those birds at the feeder, each time it's like, I would like to get to know you a little bit better. Can I, through the process of paying attention, notice something about the goldfinch that regularly comes to my feeder that I've never noticed before? If I can, the drawing's a win. Can I get myself to notice some detail of proportions that I thought I understood kind of how this goes? When there's part of my drawing that's not working, that often for me is like, oh, this is a place that I can really lean in and learn a little bit. So I hope that some of these strategies can be useful to you. So maybe what we should do now is kind of go out to the crowd who is here in our Zoom room and find out if you have any birdie drawing questions. If so, let's explore those. So you can use the raise hand function on your screen, or you can type it into a chat and one of our amazing hosts will catch it. But if you'd like to sort of be brought into the conversation, feel free to go live and say hi.
And
And
if you don't feel comfortable asking the question like directly in the whole chat or unmuting, you can message me separately and using the to feature in the chat, and you can just message me and I will share your question for you.
great. And that was Jen, I think, talking there.
Yep.
One question in the chat here. How many sketches would you typically make before you make a final product?
Oh, that's a really good question. See, for me, I'm not making a final product. There is no masterpiece for me. For me, the real thing is these sketches that I take in the field. And when I'm working on a field guide or something like that, I will take all my drawings and I'll kind of pile them up around me and I will do the best I can. But for me, the real magic is going out or sitting in my office here looking out and looking out at the birds on the feeder and seeing what's going on with them, noticing something and putting that down. Let me grab one of my sketchbooks and we can take a look at sort of numbers of bird drawings. All right. The best thing I can do, especially when I'm encountering a bird that I haven't met before, is to make a bunch of drawings. So let's go here. So this is a really pretty little blue bee eater. And so this one got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 little drawings. And so as it moves, so it would sit in a perch for a while, then it would fly out and come back, often in a slightly different pose, and then it would fly out and then come back slightly different pose. Sometimes sort of similar pose, sometimes really, really different. And so I'm kind of compositing all these together, putting all those ones together. Let's see if there's another birdie moment. Here's some birdie birds. All right. So here's this crazy iridescent green wood hoopoo. And you see that one got a couple of kind of quick sketches, and then it hung out for a little bit longer in this pose. And what happened is the pose that it stayed in the longest, that's the one that I got the furthest along on and actually was able to get a bunch more detail. Sometimes I'll just get sort of one quick pose. Sometimes I'm able to get more. A lot of it depends on how cooperative the bird is. Things like this bird, this little white stork here, or yellow-billed stork. This stork is being really cooperative. It just sat here. They'll rest on the ground on their little bird ankles like that, and so it was being really, really, really cooperative. Something like that. I can get a lot more detail on these little ibis that were walking around. You notice there's much less detail. It's a little bit more sketchy. This is very like, And if you look really carefully, you can see these little blue lines in here. You can see some little blue lines coming through it. Those are that light pencil in the background. So I'm doing that even in these drawings here. Let's take a look at one other.
And we ask while we're looking too, there a lot of people are wondering about what kind of colored pencils you use.
Oh, okay. So most of what I do is with, let's go for focusing. Most of what I do is with pen and watercolor.
Mm.
This set of pencils that I've got right here, these are like these fancy Crayola pencils, right? Um, I recently ordered another little set of Prismacolor Kohl Erase pencils that I'll probably be bringing with me into the field. These ones I just stole from my daughters, and but I like Prismacolor pencils. Those are great. If you're going to be doing really careful really careful colored pencil drawings, Faber-Castell Polychromos pencils are amazing, but they're more expensive. So on these things, you can see sort of moving around. There's a whole bunch of little frigate birds here. So some of these are, quicker sketches. But then on other things that you'll find that the bird will sit there and be really cooperative, and then you'll be able to get a lot more detail. So a lot of it just depends on the bird and the timing of the moment. This is on a trip to the Galapagos Islands, where I got to go do a bunch of bird observations until wah, wah, wah.
No.
So for the next 10 days, I was not able to go out and explore anything, and just sort of kept track of symptoms and what I could see through a porthole. But yeah, there are. So
Can I ask, what type of a paper are you doing this on, watercolor and pen?
so this, if you notice, this is kind of a gray paper. I
Yeah.
often like using toned paper if I am in a place that has a lot of intense solar radiation, because then there's less glare off the paper.
Uh,
So this is in a Strathmore gray toned sketchbook,
okay.
and then so I can do my regular drawing in that, and then I can also put watercolor on it, and it's not like thick watercolor paper. If you look, right, it's just
Yeah.
regular paper. So the book ends up being a little bit kind of cattywampus, but I kind of like it when a book gets a little bit cattywampus. It kind of looks loved and kind of lived in.
Yeah,
Can,
it's
can I
honest.
ask a question?
Yes.
Birds
Hang on
don't
one second.
say,
We have
Oh.
we have someone with their hand raised. So I want to make sure that we also
okay,
so
I
ask your,
also put it in the chat.
Okay.
and then let's move over to the hand raise.
All right. So we're going to move over to Jamie, and I'm going to let's see here. Is it okay, Jamie? Is it okay if I add you into the spotlight here?
If that makes you happy.
Sure. So then we get to talk with real people.
Yeah, sure.
Hi there.
Hi. So I am wondering if you can give some tips for how to make an eye quickly, not just look like a black pit of nothingness.
Yes, the pit of despair, right? Yes, that's a great question. And I actually have a couple little eye hacks that I think
Figured you would.
you'll like. So let's do a couple of eye hacks, and let's go there now. So if you look at my eye, the thing that makes it look wet is that you can see that reflection in it. If I have, let's see, some water on my face, you can often see, yeah, there it is. You can get the little, you can see that this side, oh, sorry, this side, no, this side here, right there. You see that little reflection in there? That's because I just splashed some water on my face. And so I'm getting off that wet surface a reflection. If I dry that, it just went away. So to make things look wet, a little highlight goes a long way. One of the things that happens when a bird dies is its eye, if it's still open, dries. And that there's no more highlight in it. So if you have just sort of that dark thing looking back at you without a highlight in it, it looks like it's a dead bird. So let's draw a few little birdie bird eyes. Bird eyes. All right. Get out my trusty Crayola. So the easiest way to do it is I'm going to actually, let's zoom down on this if we can. Yep. Yeah, I'm going to put whoop. Right. So here's a little bird eye. And what I'll often do is if the light is coming from this side is I will draw a little line around the area where I want the highlight to be. And then fill in around that. And this can be done really kind of quick and fast. Sometimes what I will have, I'm going to draw this a little bit larger, is sort of a highlight in here and a little hint of a reflected light there, the highlight being the brightest. And so what I will get is this part really dark.
That's super helpful. Thank you.
But wait, there's more. Because
Okay.
then often having just a little hint of that birds will have a different kind of texture of skin or little feathers right around their eye. So sometimes having something like that just around the eye helps it sort of feel like it's sort of set in place. Let's take a look at some bird sketches here. Boop, boop-de-boo, boop-de-boo. Ah. So look at that little highlight. And then you see the little bit of eye ring, even if it's not a different color, around that eye makes a big, big difference. So just some lines around that eye sort of gives you a different texture of feathers in the bird's head. And you might be saying to yourself, but do you really see that on birds? Let's just take a look back on those birds who we were seeing before and look at that little different texture around your eye. Look at your eyeball. Look at your eyeball. Right? So we get a little bit of that going on, and then that's really good. Let's just look at a couple other examples. Zoom. Here. All right, here I see a little highlight. Here I see a little highlight. And I also have that different texture, those little lines right around the eye. That's really gonna help our little bird eyeballs look good. Now, let me show you a trick. If you accidentally don't leave that. So let's say I've got my bird head here. And somehow I lost that. Oh, dead eye. That's where, say hello to my little friend. This is the gel pen. This is the jelly roll. And look at this. Ooh, yeah, I just came back. Doesn't that look better? And if I want a little bit of a highlight on this side, I draw a little line there and tap it with my finger. And I can get really good looking birdie eyes. That little highlight goes a long way. And you're thinking like, do you really doing that? Yeah, I do this all the time. So, I mean, look at that see the little bit of highlight. Oh, just makes a big, big difference.
I want to make sure that we acknowledge that we are a few minutes past our technical scheduled time. So if folks need to leave, we understand, but I can certainly stick around.
Yep,
Kat said she
same.
could too. Jack, if you're willing to stick around. And
Probably
we had
busy.
somebody unmuted, but we weren't sure who you were, and you also had a question in the chat, so we want to make sure that
Yes, we want to answer your question.
we get that question.
And
Yes.
and it was no. Oh, look at this. Look at this.
Yep.
See these ones here with. Don't those look dead?
Yeah.
This is Cheryl, and I had the chat, and I
Cheryl.
couldn't figure out how to ask a question and
Yeah.
raise my hand, but my birds at my feet, or I have a trough underneath, and I love the way they hop. They don't walk. And I want to capture movement because they don't pose. How do you do that?
So one way of doing that, hold on, I'm just having so much fun putting some highlights and eyes. I just want to put one more in.
Got to roll with the jelly roll while you got it.
Oh, that's right. I'm on a roll now.
Yeah, thank you
So
so
you're
much.
saying-
And sorry, Cheryl, for cutting ahead. I appreciate it.
So how can I show behavior? Let me take a look and see if there's any little sketches here where I am showing that. Oh, here we go. It's not with a boo. So sometimes what I'll do is with one drawing, and if some part of it is moving, I'll give one bird multiple heads, right? And then you can kind of get a sense of how it moves, right? Let's see if I have, so sometimes through sort of catching different poses, you can get, if you have a whole bunch of these together, then you kind of get the feeling for the bird kind of doing all of its crazy business. But let's see, where are some, if there is a group of things and you're putting them in different positions, then you also can kind of get that sense of movement. Here, a sense of movement. I'm using an arrow and this kind of hydra bird, you know, multiple heads on one little figure. Here, getting a group of things, everybody's in a slightly different pose. You kind of get a sense for that motion. Arrows and those sorts of things are really useful for that. But also just if the bird changes position, you get another drawing and you get a sense of some of the motion in these. If there is a group of birds and they're moving around, I'll often start one drawing and then it moves. And what I'll do is I'll just start another drawing of the same bird, but at a distance that the different birds in the flock are keeping from each other. So these ibis were kind of close together. So my bird moved, and I just jumped over and started drawing the same bird, new pose. And then you end up getting these different poses, and you also get a flock. Let's see if... Oh, here's a bunch of bird movement. So these Jackson's widow birds have this display where they hold their tail high, or actually those upper tail coverts. They'll hold those high, and then they will pop up like popcorn out of the grass in these little display flights. They kind of go bloop, bloop. That's why I've got all this little popcorn kernels drawn all around here on the page. So these are male birds in a lek, so that's why it's my lucky day. Here's a drawing of one of the birds. Here's one of these things in flight. Couldn't really see what the wings were doing, so just sort of drew in a little blur. And then these little kind of up-down arrows out here in the field showing these things popping up like popcorn. They kind of go bloop, bloop, bloop. So that might be kind of trying to get some of those different poses in flight. Any other kind of behaviors? Oh, here's a behavioral one. So this bird is strutting around. This one, instead of hopping, has this walk. And as it's walk, it's the wagtail, its tail bobs up and down as its head is moving back and forth. So I drew this thing kind of strutting up and along here, showing how much motion you get in that tail, showing how much motion you get in that head. And here's a bird hopping. Hop, hop, hop. One way you can tell it's hopping, because I wrote hop, hop, hop. So all of those are ways of sort of describing that behavior that I see. Hop, hop, hop. And other behaviors. I'm being mooned by a little flycatcher. But yeah, when they give you these unusual poses, don't just say to yourself, I gotta wait till you get back into the typical bird portrait side view. You give me that view, I'm gonna draw that view. Does that help answer the question?
Jack, I'm going to jump in and do
Yeah.
one of the things that I do
Thanks very much.
in in looking at stories, and I'm going to look at some of the themes across these questions and lump a couple of them together.
Oh, great.
Of folks who are asking about some of your process and a little bit about you. So I'm going to ask you a few questions and we'll put them all together. Where are you in California? How many sketchbooks, how many completed sketchbooks have you saved? How long does a sketch take? Comparing early to late. So just a little bit of the basics about you, a little bit about your historical process. And I think, and with that, a question about how do you get motivated in frustrating moments? And how do you move forward in those?
Oh,
So three
those
parts,
are
sort of the
great
basic,
questions. Yeah.
a little bit more process, and then a bigger, deeper question.
So I'm over here in San Mateo, California. But I will often do live classes in different places around the state, or around the country or around the world. That was actually the trip where I got COVID. I was the leader on that trip. So, but I'm now planning another trip to the Galapagos if I can find a boat that I can get cheaply. I want to get a quality boat that'll be less expensive. And it was a nature journaling cruise. But your fearless leader went down for the COVID count. That was at the start of our pandemic. That was not fun. The I have the closet back there is filled with journals. I don't know how many they have. Sometimes I'm completing one a year, sometimes it's two a year. If I am in a kind of a place where I'm really, really happy, I'm journaling more. And if I'm journaling more, I'm really, really happy. There's a kind of direct correlation between my mind and how much I'm journaling. If I am, sometimes I struggle with depression. And in those situations, I'm journaling so much less. And so one of the things that I try to do to self-medicate is to try to force myself in those times to kind of get out and go journaling. Sometimes my wife says, like, honey, you really need to grab your journal and go outside. If I can get myself to do that, it really, really helps bring up my mood. So it's an interesting thing. It's really related to my overall state of mind. One thing that motivates me is I'm often teaching. And so, you know, even if I'm in a depression, then I'll say to myself, you know, I'm going to go teach my class. And then I'm teaching a class and I'm drawing pictures and I'm there drawing a picture. And when you kind of start drawing pictures, you kind of get into the flow state and you're kind of looking at the bird and it's kind of getting you out of whatever you're ruminating with. And that's really, really helpful. A thing that helps a lot is if you can find a little community of people to do this with, friends who you can do this with, and you can get each other out on a regular basis. And that is wonderful. Kind of having some journaling friends. Yep, that's really, really good. If you go to my website, johnmuirlaws.com, I have hundreds of hours of free nature drawing tutorials and courses on how to be doing this. If you want to look into it more, I've also written some books on nature journaling and those sorts of things. Those are available in my little store. You can check all those things out. I also have links to places where you want to join a nature journaling club near you. You can find them. We've made an interactive map. We actually started a nonprofit organization to help people do nature journaling called the Wild Wonder Foundation. We have conferences, big meetups, field trips. We've got one in Maine, one in Point Reyes, one in Seattle. What am I missing? A lot of places. So so you can go do that with other people, and that's really fun. That's very, very motivating.
The one in Maine is at the place where the spark for the Sparkbird project happened on Hog Island Audubon Camp. Can't recommend
That's where it all
highly enough.
started.
The food is so good.
Did you get one of the little puffins? I hear they have these little kind of cream filled
No, we don't go on the island.
No. They make
Oh, yeah, the cream puffins.
the cream
So
puffins.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Part
Yeah,
of
we don't go on the island and bug the puffins themselves and kind of like pet the bird, really pet the bird. No, we don't do that.
No.
I love
So
those.
I have one last sort of chunk of questions from folks.
I think I might have forgotten some of
as
the questions. That was a multi-part question, but
I think we got most of it.
but if people
And
want to follow me more, I teach tons of stuff online for free. And if you miss the class, you can get the recording. And you start doing that, it's a lot more fun to do the stuff in person. And I really encourage you to connect with. You can find a nature journaling club near you. And if not, we've got directions on how to start your own club. And it's a ton of fun. It's doing this
we
with
put
you.
a bunch of those links in the chat for
We
you.
sure did.
I appreciate that.
I'm trying to get those in as you're
Yeah.
saying them.
Yes.
Right. And if you buy the books from me, then I make the margin rather than Jeff Bezos. And turns out economically he's doing fine. We don't have to worry about it. And but that also helps support me and my family.
Yes, for sure. And I think probably even though there are a few questions left, we may want to at least give folks the opportunity to leave by doing sort of a wrap. I know there are more questions. Please stick around if, Jack, you're willing to keep answering.
Sure.
I do just want to say thank you so much to everybody for being here tonight. What a fantastic teacher and what a joyful experience, Jack, it is to be with you in this space. And Jen, thank you for all of what you've done to create this space with us and the idea that you came with. This is amazing. We hope folks will be able to use some of these newly practiced skills to draw your spark bird maybe. And I think, Jen, I don't know about you, but I think it would be really fun to revisit this at some point and have a putting together the sketch and the story and the research. And so it would be terrific to see you all back here maybe in
or
6
other
months.
ways you create.
Or
One
other
of my
ways you
kiddos
create.
creates
Yes,
through Lego. So bring your
exactly.
Lego, bring your other ways to bring your
Exactly.
story.
Yes. I do also want to just say, I put in the chat, but I wanted to say out loud as well, as a way of continuing to build Birdability community, we're going to be hosting every fourth Thursday a Birdability salon or social hour. And during that time, you'll be able to split out into interest areas. Maybe you want to come and nature journal with others. Maybe you want to talk about native plants in your backyard that will draw birds. Maybe you want to play wingspan. You know what? We've got a room for every single one of those and more. And it is a real opportunity for us to continue figuring out how we are in community together and with the birds and paying deep attention to the birds as a way of grounding ourselves and as a way of remembering everything that this world gives us and how we can give back. And so I just want to again say thank you, Jack, for this. It was really spectacular this evening.
Oh, thank you so much for creating this platform and also for really doing a deep dive in how to make nature accessible
Mhm.
for everybody.
Yeah.
That's really, really important. I remember when my mama got had a stroke and
Mhm.
spent the rest of her life in a wheelchair. She went from um, you know, being, all over the Point Reyes Peninsula to we didn't have any toolkit of
Right.
how to allow us to kind of get out there
Mm.
and to have these conversations and remind ourselves that we all benefit from and have a right to be in these wild places and spaces and in communion with nature. Um,
Absolutely.
can I wish I had do-overs
Mm.
on my mom's experience once she had that stroke. I feel like now I've got like so much more of a toolkit
Yes.
that would have allowed her to continue to engage with the world the way that she loved. Um, and I didn't have the tools. So you making all of these conversations, um, daylighting them really helps
Mhm.
us kind of plan for that. Or if you are already in that situation, to realize that, oh, I also have a right to be in these places, and these are mine. So thank you for that work. And Jen, thank you for the work that you are doing, connecting
Mhm.
people with these stories. It's often through story that that we are primed to learn through stories. And I love how you connect people with the birds through those.
Well, and your story, your own spark
Right.
story is through you discovered birds through your dad's health and helping him
Mhm.
navigate his own health challenges. And I think it really speaks to how birds can help us stay healthy and the interpersonal connections that birds have. It's just a really beautiful, beautiful
Yeah.
message. Um, I'm
CJ,
going to
thank you so
ask
much for
our
being.
last couple questions here
Yeah.
to make sure that people get their questions answered. And these are about the animals that you're looking at. What do you do if you don't know the name of it? Do
Oh.
you sketch it and then go look it up
Mhm.
later? And what's your process for that? Are some animals easier than others to draw? And then we're going to go to our very first question is going to be the last but not least question, and talk to us about owls. Owls, any tips for drawing owls and in particular, owl eyes. So going back to those eyes again.
I was going to see if I could pull out a specific sketchbook. Um, but for me, this will sound weird coming from somebody who writes field guides. Um, Naming the bird isn't important to me. Um, Really, I very often I will go to, if I'm even traveling internationally, I will often go without a bird book because I find there's a tendency when I get the name, I stop actually looking deeply and looking hard because like, oh, I know what that is. Now on to the next thing. But if I don't know the name, there's an interesting phenomenon called the Zergenic effect. And the Zergenic effect is how when your brain thinks it's figured something out and has the answer, problem solved, we shunt a whole bunch of resources from engaging with and dealing with that. So if you've ever studied for a test, taken the test and promptly forgotten stuff, or you're looking at a bird and you're going like, oh my gosh, what is that? And then somebody says, oh, that's an indigo bunting. And you go like, whoa, indigo bunting. Cool. What's that over there? Right. So your brain goes, "Dwip," because it gets that problem solved thing. But if I don't know the name, then I can't Zergenic myself. And so I'll often really try to keep open loops. If I do get the name, I have to be really intentional. Like, I don't want to Zergenic myself. So in this journal here, document cam. in this journal here, what I would do is, I'm going around, I'm looking at birds, I'm observing them. You notice there's a bunch of names that are in here. A bunch of those names were added much later. At the start, I was just I had this page with all of these little characters all over it, and I wasn't identifying them, but I was trying to figure out like, oh, are you the male of this? Are you the female of this? How do you fit into this picture? So I would have, um, these, uh, I would have these different drawings in there and then try to figure out, like, oh, is this gray one? Is that the female? Is that males and females there? Like, what's going on with that? It's really easy if you get a name on something, or you see what you're supposed to see in the field guide, to like, oh, okay, that's this weaver finch, and then to stop observing. But what's neat is in Africa, there's such a, so much biodiversity that these, like there's a bunch of different robin chats, and the difference between them are subtle. So can I, by looking at these without seeing in the field guide, like, oh, you have to see like how far down the white stripe goes. Can I discover like some of them have these long white stripes, some of them don't? I love making those sorts of things. So I will often do a lot of the identification later on. So you'll see that some of these things they don't have, they're not labeled, they're not identified. Because I love looking at that. Or if I do know the identity of something, I will often try to see, can I discover a new behavior of this thing that I didn't see before? What can I do to kind of get myself to notice something new about this organism, so that I start kind of thinking about like, oh, what is your behavior, rather than kind of running into the possibility of zerganicking myself. There might have been another question in there that I forgot.
Is there any animal that's particularly hard for you
Yes.
or easier
Humans.
for you?
Humans are so tough to draw because we actually have something, the FFA, right? Not Future Farmers of America. The fusiform face area is part of your brain. You have a
I used
fusiform
to
face
study
area.
that back in my postdoc days.
Oh, you did? What was your research on there?
We were looking at differential ability or natural reaction in that space compared to place areas across different people. So sort of variability in the function of them.
That is really cool.
Particularly in the context of aging, was what my team
Oh, that's fun. That's fun. So yeah, it's this whole part of your brain that's devoted to like little micro expressions. So if you meet me on the street and I'm doing this, and you meet me on the street and I'm doing this, right? That's a really subtle change in face expression, but it means a ton, right? That and that, right? But we evolved part of our brain to pick up all these little micro differences, because the difference between that and, right, you all got that immediately. But think of a drawing, the difference between this and this, right, means a ton. So your brain picks up all those differences in human faces, right? And we don't have that for drawing birds. So you can, as long as you make it red with some black around the face, it'll go like, dude, that's a cardinal. All right. So, but we've got special parts of our brain for being super critical of human faces.
until we know the birds really well, and then that specificity probably comes in. I think Eric Wang up at
Yeah, there's like you get some of the, the face patterns wrong on a drawing of a warbling vireo. There's like 5 people who will catch that. You get a part of a micro expression wrong on a person, and everybody goes like, that ain't right.
And then any tips for owls was the first question in the chat, and we will close out with it because Who doesn't love owls? And it's Superb Owl Weekend. So
It's
gotta
Superb.
celebrate
Tell me
the
about
owls.
Superb Owl Weekend. How did I not know it's Superb Owl Weekend?
It's Super Bowl instead of
Yes,
Super Bowl. It's the
it's
Super Bowl
Superb
alternative
Owl.
for us. It's Superb Owl. You respell
Superb
it.
Owl Weekend. I didn't even know it was Super Bowl weekend, but I do like Superb Owl better.
But now you can celebrate Superb Owl Weekend.
I can. I now have a reason to Superb Owl. It reminds me when I was in Tanzania last, one of our guides, I was telling this wonderful story about he had written this essay, and he had done his best. It was a really good essay. He knocked it out of the park, and when he got it back, the teacher had written a comment on it and give him a grade. He wrote super B, and he said, like, you thought it was super. Why'd you give me a B? And it was superb, right? It was superb. And there's this starling, this beautiful starling in Tanzania called the superb starling. And so we all called those super bees.
Super bees.
The super bee starling. And so, I like that. I'm going to share, let's see. I'm going to share this. So this, if you haven't been here before, this here is johnmuirlaws.com. That's my website. All right. That is, you can, there's tons of stuff in here. Here's how to draw. Like there's all this stuff on drawing birds. You go to the drawing birds part. There's an introduction to drawing birds. There's something on drawing hawks. There's something on, wait, what's this? What's that? Whoa, it's a whole hour and a half long video on how to draw owls. And that is part 1 of 2. And then there's this other part here, how to draw owls part 2. Whoa, there's 2 whole videos here on drawing owls. And then all these things over on the side here, right? That is, each one of these is our other tutorials on, you can kind of go to all these sort of things and whoa, holy smoke, that's a whole lot of critter drawing so that you can here find tons of resources. But if you want to go straight to drawing owls, go to how to draw. If you go to the workshop archive, you can find it here. Like these are all videos and tutorials on different aspects of drawing, and there is no paywall. This is all free. Right? But let's go back up to the top. Oh, I'm getting tired. Oh, my finger. I sprained my finger. But let's go to how to draw birds. It's all bird drawing workshops on the right there. You scroll down, third one down, there's a whole bunch of stuff on drawing owls. So I think that's the quickest way to kind of, I could do a little thing here, but I think you might want to actually come right in here and check those out, which also allows me then to give a plug for my website. Again, all of this stuff is up here for free. And you can connect with the Wild Wonder Foundation right here in this link. We also have a conference through the Wild Wonder conference. I've got resources for teachers and educators. There is a worldwide community of nature journalers that you can connect with, find nature journal clubs near you, or join the Wild Wonder Foundation's kind of, we've created a sort of social link place where there are a lot of folks have concerns about both sort of what is going on with social media sites. There are I think some valid reasons to be concerned about that way of exchanging relationship and community. So we made our own clean, well-lighted place for nature journaling. We call it Wonderland, and it allows you to share journal pages. We started with, there is still active a Facebook group of nature journalers, and if you are a Facebook person, you can use that. But I find myself wanting to kind of move away from that now, and want to encourage people to check out Wonderland, and you can find lots of nature journaling resources and inspiration there. So rather than do the owl drawing demo, I would just sort of point people towards all of those resources.
Such great resources. And now I know exactly what I'm doing for Superb Owl Weekend. A couple of Superb Owl videos to watch.
Superb owl.
What
That makes me really happy.
Isn't that great?
Owls capture our imaginations in such beautiful ways. So I'm really
Yes.
excited for that for this weekend.
Superb owl weekend. Oh, that makes me very, very happy.
Oh, thank you so much again, Jack, for the generosity of your time and your skills and your heart, and the ways that you see and connect with the world. It inspires, I think, so many of us to be in spaces with you and to learn with and from you. And I am really grateful for this time tonight. I needed it, you all. I really needed
Oh,
it. So thank you for being here. Jen, thank you for all the ways we get to work together and the ongoing supports that we are able to share with each other. And community, thank you for being here, because that's what it's really all about.
Absolutely.
I'm really
Keep those stories
grateful.
coming, y'all. We'll have a big
Yeah.
celebration of the stories and the creations
Yes,
that have come out of these workshops down the road. So keep them coming, and look forward to seeing them, reading them, and hearing them.
Jen, can we put again a link in? So if you have your own how I fell in love with birds story, you can share that with Jen. She's collecting all of these stories together for and it's a really fun and inspiring project. And your story is really welcome in this space, and want to
And
encourage
needed.
you to share those stories. It gives us real insight about how we connect with the world. And so you can find the Spark Bird Project and connect with that there.
Follow us, like I said, I think for all of us and all of our organizations, follow us in the places where you should follow good people, and support us in the ways that you can support good people with your energy, enthusiasm. All of y'all with tons of extra money hanging around,
Absolutely. Always welcome that as well.
But your community.
Donations, but community is really what I think all of us are so grateful for right now.
Yes.
Donations help make the community happen. All of our organizations rely on them, and we're grateful for them. And also, as well, additionally, none of this would be possible were it not for this community that you all bring to it. So thank you all so much. And I hope everyone has a wonderful evening and enjoy your Superb Owl weekend, full of owl sketching lessons. We'll all be doing that, right? On Sunday. That's what I'm doing. All right. Thank you, friends. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, everyone. And thanks again, Jack, for this, and Jen for being here.
Thanks, Jack. See y'all soon. Happy birding.
Bye, you all.
Happy owling, everybody.